Hello, friends. Today I have a different kind of story. Usually we tell stories where everyone lives happily ever after, but life is not always happy. Sometimes life is sad, and sometimes sad endings can be beautiful too. This story takes place on a small island in the middle of the big, dark ocean. The island was called Gray Rock. It was not a pretty island. It had no flowers, it had no trees, it only had rocks and wind. And on the highest rock there was a tall, white lighthouse. The lighthouse was the most important thing. The ocean around the island was dangerous. There were sharp rocks under the water. Without the light, the boats would crash. Without the light, the sailors would die. The keeper of the lighthouse was an old man named Elias. Elias was very, very old. His face had lines like a map. His hands were rough like the rocks. He lived alone in the lighthouse for 50 years. Every night when the sun went down, Elias did his job. He picked up a heavy jar of oil. He walked to the stairs. There were 200 stairs to the top. Step, step, step. It was hard work. His legs hurt, his back hurt, but he never stopped. He climbed to the top. He poured the oil into the big lamp. He lit the fire, and the light shined. Flash, flash, flash. The people in the village down below looked up. They saw the light. They said, "Elias is awake. We are safe." And they went to sleep. One winter, the weather was terrible. The wind howled like a wolf. The rain was like ice, and Elias got sick. He was very weak. He coughed all day. His body said, "Elias, stop. You need to sleep. You need to rest." But Elias looked at the window. The ocean was dark. The storm was coming. He said to himself, "I cannot rest. If I sleep, the light goes out. If the light goes out, the ships will crash." So every night, the old sick man picked up the heavy oil. He climbed the 200 stairs. It was hard work. His legs hurt, his back hurt, but he never stopped. He climbed to the top. He poured the oil into the big lamp. He lit the fire, and the light shined. Flash, flash, flash. Then came the night of the great storm. It was the worst storm in history. The waves were as tall as mountains. The thunder shook the ground. Elias was lying in his bed. He was very feverish. He was too hot, then too cold. He could not stand up. He looked at the clock. It was 6 p.m. It was time to light the lamp. He tried to stand up. He fell down. His legs did not work. "I cannot do it," he whispered. "I am too old. I am finished." Elias closed his eyes. He wanted to sleep forever. But then he heard a sound. Boom! It was a flare gun, a signal from the ocean. Elias crawled to the window. He looked into the black water. He saw a tiny light. It was a ship, a small fishing boat. It was lost in the storm. It was coming closer to the sharp rocks. On that boat there were fathers, there were sons. They were the men from the village. If Elias did not turn on the light, they would hit the rocks in 10 minutes. Elias looked at the boat. Then he looked at the stairs. He knew the truth. If he climbed the stairs, his heart would stop. It was too much for him. He would die. But if he didn't climb, the men on the boat would die. Elias took a deep breath. He grabbed the heavy oil jar. He did not stand up. He crawled. He crawled to the first step. 1. Pain shot through his chest. 2. He coughed. 3. He didn't think about the pain. He thought about the men on the boat. He thought, just one more step. Just one more. He climbed for an hour. His hands were bleeding. His heart was beating very fast. Boom, boom, boom. He was crying from the pain, but he did not stop. Finally, he reached the top. He was dizzy. The room was spinning. He pulled himself up to the lamp. His hands shook. He poured the oil. He took the match. He struck it. Whoosh! The big light turned on. The beam of light cut through the dark storm. It hit the water. It showed the sharp rocks. On the boat, the captain shouted, "Look, the light! Turn the wheel! Turn left!" The boat turned away from the rocks, just in time. They were safe. The boat sailed toward the safe harbor. Up in the tower, Elias watched the boat go to the safe place. He smiled. It was a weak smile, but it was a happy smile. "They are safe," he whispered. He sat down on the cold floor next to the warm light. He looked at the light. It was beautiful. "My job is done," he said. Elias closed his eyes. He took one last breath, and then he was gone. The old keeper died alone in the tower while his light shined over the ocean. The next morning, the storm stopped. The sun came out. The men from the boat ran up the hill to the lighthouse. They wanted to say thank you to Elias. They had presents for him. They had hot soup. They opened the door. "Elias," they called. "Elias, we are safe." But the room was silent. They ran up the stairs. They found him at the top. He looked like he was sleeping. He had a peaceful face. The men took off their hats. They cried. They understood. They knew he gave his life for them. The captain touched Elias's cold hand. "You saved us," the captain said. "You gave your last breath for us." They buried Elias on the top of the hill, looking at the sea. It was a sad day. The whole village cried. But this is not where the story ends. That night, the sun went down. The lighthouse was dark. There was no keeper anymore. The village people looked at the dark tower. They felt afraid. Then a young boy stood up. He was the captain's son. He picked up a lantern. "I am going," he said. "Where?" asked his mother. "To the tower," said the boy. "The light must not go out." Then another man stood up. "I will come with you." "Me too," said a woman. 10 people walked up the hill. They didn't have one keeper anymore, but they didn't need one. They took turns. One person carried the oil, one person cleaned the glass, one person lit the fire. They did it together. Because of Elias, the village learned a lesson. They learned that we must take care of each other. Elias was gone, but his light was not gone. His light was inside the people. Every time they lit the lamp, they said his name. This is for Elias. Sometimes good people leave us, and it hurts. It makes us cry. But if we learn from them, if we are kind like them, then they never really die. Elias gave his life to light the lamp once, but his memory lit the lamp forever.